Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Friday afternoon for the first mastermind session on data and AI hosted by Data Futures, a data and AI consulting firm based in New York. These sessions are about more than just exploring the latest trends in artificial intelligence and data management. It's about exchanging insights, asking bold questions, and building a shared understanding of how we can harness these technologies to solve real-world problems. I'm thrilled and honored to have you all here as our panelists. You all brought a wealth of industry experience, knowledge to the topic we have today. That is vibe coding and data engineering. Let us get started with an introduction. I am Rong Parnas, a computer scientist by training. Spend most of my career doing data and analytics work. In more recent year has been focusing on machine learning, AI, and Gen AI. Left McKinsey early this year and co-founded a startup Arc Build that built agentic AI product. I also hold an advisor role as head of AI at Data Futures.
Nam, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Namrata Shah. I do go by Nam, and I'm basically an AWS hero. I run a YouTube channel. The name of the channel is basically Namrata Shah, and by profession, I work as a global head of engineering for investment technology at an asset management firm called as Nuveen. So nice to meet all of you, and looking forward to the conversation.
Alex?
Yes, great to meet you, everybody. Alex Arutyunyants, I'm a senior principal AI data engineer at Quantum Black, which is part of McKinsey, and that's where I met Rong. And we collaborate in multiple projects in multiple domains, and my expertise is in designing and building AI and data-enabled solutions. And before that, I worked as a tech lead in analytics, architect, and a software engineer for many years. I'm also a computer scientist by trade, and very excited to learn and share latest advances in Gen AI, and vibe coding is one of them. Over to Norm.
Norm?
Great.
Over to Norm.
Norm?
Great. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Norman. I am the VP of data science at First Party. We work with companies to monetize their data assets. And I spent majority of my career providing data-driven insights to enhance investment outcomes within the capital market space. And so prior to the role at First Party, it was the global head of data science at Bloomberg, and prior to that was the chief data scientist at UBS Asset Management. And so as part of that role, like I said, spent a lot of time leveraging data, machine learning, and AI to build to enhance investment outcomes. And I guess by training, I would put that in the financial engineering camp. But yeah, I've always loved using technology.
Go ahead and dive in. So today's topic is vibe coding. So how would you describe vibe coding, in your own words? Like, what does it mean for you? Go ahead.
I'm very excited about using Gen AI tools, and I was excited very early. I started using them even before I got introductions to OpenAI products, even before they kind of blew up. And I thought that there's a lot of potential in it. And initially, I used it more for documentation because I like coding. I love coding, and I don't get to do that full time. I also have to do other things, and documentation was always kind of a little bit of a struggle. But with Gen AI, that is covered. And then I also discovered that it can code. And lately, I've been using multiple tools: Cursor, Windsurf, V0. We'll probably talk about many of them, right? But I started using before vibe coding was vibe coding, we probably all did. We would ask ChatGPT, "Hey, give me a snippet of code," and I would copy paste it and then modify it. So defining it is using Gen AI tools, LLMs, to write code, and kind of expanding on why is it vibe? It's because you can have a partner and kind of work with that partner back and forth with vibes plus hopefully some of the experience and expertise.
Well, yeah, thanks, Alex. I didn't realize that that's what the vibe actually means, is that so it's like the better version of the pair programming, basically, with the AI as your pair programmer.
I think so. And many of us probably are familiar with some of the tools that existed before Gen AI. So if we use IntelliJ, PyCharm, some of the IntelliSense that existed for over a decade, right? That was automation of coding. Today, the intelligence of these tools is much higher. So that is the pair programming we used to work with, very dumb kind of auto completion partner. Now you can, it's getting closer to being in coding, at least on par with some of the abilities that we have.
Mm.
And we all, well, I used um, Stack Overflow a lot in the past. So I think a lot of that is already incorporated in these tools.
Yep.
And I don't have to switch back and forth and do search and then do that.
Yeah,
So
that's great. Yeah, Nam, you have something to add?
Yes, I think I have a different perspective. Like you asked, like how would you define vibe coding in your words?
Mhm.
Of course, what Alex said is far more technical, but let's if you had to explain somebody walking down the street what is vibe coding, I would say it is more about intent coding, right? Vibe coding is something
Mm.
that somebody who is not a coder or not a programmer can actually can code. So it basically is an enabler to for anybody. Let's say if my mom wants to code today, she's not a coder, but she can now code because of vibe coding and having these different tools like ChatGPT, Amazon Q, Copilot. I mean, I've used Amazon Q widely along with ChatGPT. So vibe coding essentially is a very simple way. In very simple way, it is a way of coding that enables any person to code by using artificial intelligence. And if I had to give a synonym to vibe coding, it would be maybe code jabbing or intent coding or maybe prompt coding. So you give it what you want and then it does the job for you. So I look at vibe coding more of a way in which you tell your intent and then AI executes that intent and generates the code for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think, with the different tools, there's a different level of technical expertise will be needed. I think some of the tools that Alex mentioned, like the windsurfer, the cursor, the Copilot, it's still more for developers, right? It's just to add on the additional natural language interface on top of the IDE versus, some others, Alex, you mentioned Base Zero, which I love as well, and Lovables, like I think they're both. They're, more for, like as Sanam said, like our kids, our parents, who know nothing about, coding or programming. They're just, but then they will be able to like put up a web page through a natural language interface, which is, amazing. Yeah, Norm, your thoughts, please.
I gotta admit, I had to Google what vibe coding is. I thought it was like a cool hangout thing or something. And I was like, oh, it's coding with AI assistance. Like that's I was like, oh, great, I know something about that. I was like, so yeah, I would just define it as coding with AI assistance.
Yeah.
I really
So
like Nam's perspective. Sorry, wrong before I forget.
yeah, no,
I really
go
like that
ahead.
perspective, and I think it's for me, for example, I can use that perspective to code with the Lido. So I can go and code with like React, which I'm not a UI developer, but I can build a whole prototype with React or Next.js, right? V0,
Mhm.
even without knowing it, and then spend time debugging, focusing on code, and I can send JavaScript. I just don't know the whole like React framework, but I can focus on certain things when it breaks, and I can fix them because I know how to read programming language. But that whole thing as an intent, I tell it, hey, build me a UI with such and such elements connected to these APIs. This is awesome. I really love that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, Nam or Alex, do you guys want to talk about some of the applications that you have built using vibe coding?
I mean, applications, I mean, applicability, actually, I would say. Uh, I mean, we built a lot of applications, but let's say any kind of applicability that we have used, especially for vibe coding, is, let's say, mainstream programming. I would say .NET, Java, Python, uh, writing SQL queries. I've also personally, let's say, when I'm testing the code of my developers or myself, the code that I have written, any kind of sample data creation.
Mhm.
I've used a lot of vibe coding, telling it an intent that, hey, I need you to create sample data for me to be able to test. And I give it like one record, just one record. And I'm
Mhm.
telling, okay, now I want you to generate, additional records using this example. So at times it has actually created, let's say, 10 records for me. But when I asked it to generate 100 records, it actually wrote a script and gave me back. Now you take the script, you compile this into a program, and then the script is going to generate whatever number of records you want to generate as well. So those are some of the applicabilities that I've used. I've also used vibe coding a lot for unit test generation. And that is one of my favorite things. Like Alex was talking about, I don't like to write unit tests. Sorry about that, guys. I know I'm a developer, but again, that is something that you don't like to do as a developer. No developer likes unit testing, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we don't like documentation, we don't like unit testing, but
I
I've
like
used.
it. It's like
Okay.
write your test first. Like it's the best way to write an application. Write the test
Yeah, I
first,
know
and
it's a
then
test-driven
instead of like,
programming. That's a different methodology. But if somebody tells me to write unit tests, I'm like, oh my God. But yes, we have used vibe coding to write a lot of unit tests as well. So those are some of the applicabilities across different applications, wrong, as you were asking, that we have used vibe coding for. So I do use vibe coding for all of these scenarios in my
Yeah.
day-to-day life.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so can you tell a little bit more about what you like about it and what you don't like about using vibe coding for
Uh,
different applications?
sure. So what I like about it is it's really very helpful. It gets my velocity very high. Okay, I can accomplish a lot of things. So yes, it is really very good. It's nice to have, as you were talking earlier, like a programming buddy besides me, somebody whom I can tell that, okay, do this, and it'll write the code and it will give it to me. So I don't have to worry about it, or I don't have to worry about generating 100 data, test data sets or something like that. It'll create those records for me and give it to me. So it's basically reducing a lot of my legwork. I can actually focus on what I really need to do rather than focusing on some of the mundane tasks like unit test writing or optimization of SQL queries or something like that. So yes, that's what I really like about it, and I do feel that it's a decent tool to keep around with you as a developer. I mean, someday you might be too bored of writing your code for a very simple reason, or you might not be able to optimize it. It helps you out. What I don't like about it is something that I was talking with one of the developers a few days back, and I was a little surprised by what I learned from this conversation. So the developer basically told me that, hey, when you are coding and when you write code, you basically can write, 100, 200 lines of code in one go. You don't think about it. You can type out everything by yourself. But my generation of developers, we cannot go further ahead without ChatGPT or Copilot or Q. So we have a heavy dependency on that, and that was like a huge, you can say a wake up alarm, a light bulb
Mm-hmm.
going.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so the current generation of developers are kind of dependent on these tools. And if I take away those tools, then they will be handicapped. So, what I don't like is the dependency that people create on these tools, thinking that AI is going to be their savior or something. It's a companion, it's somebody who's good to have with you, but it is not something that you can basically outsource your work to. So that's one thing that I don't like about this. And the other thing that I don't like about some of the tools that I have used, after going through 4 or 5 steps, like as in a chat conversation with this tool, when I'm trying to extract out code, in the middle of the conversation, it loses context. And that bugs me a lot because I have to restart it again. And if I'm lucky, it will lose the context all over again. So that's a more of a technical issue, which can be fixed, but that's something that I don't like about this tool.
Yes, and then I think you hit the nail on the head. One of the topics that want us to get into more details is that, what's the impact of using this, on the developer skill, right? Do we develop the codependence? Can we still be able to do it without it? But yeah, so let's, Norm, you want to share your view?
Yeah, happy to. So, I mean, I've used it for anything from writing simple SQL queries through little code snippets to like full web apps. I mean, kind of like Alex said, like kind of build out the structure and then add to it. It was the same thing as Alex. I'm not a UI front end guy, so it was great to have somebody to like create the structure and like it's really good at like the basic things that even if I don't know the basics of the coding language, it'll definitely like get me a lot of the way there. And so yeah, it's like anyone else, been a massive productivity booster. I'm also encouraging everyone on the team to use it, even kind of almost to the extent I forgot which company it was. I think it was Shopify. It was like an expectation that
Yeah.
you use AI coding assistance. So like I haven't forced it as much, but I've like strongly encouraged people to use it and leverage it. And it's already been we've had one issue where we were originally producing a lot of sort of data reports through Excel, and the person who was in charge of that, like I was like, why don't you just do it in Python? Like every time we have to update this, you have to like manually go through all this stuff. Like why don't we write it in Python? He's like, I don't know, like the visualization elements that well, whatever. And so just the whole thing wrote it up for him. And he was like, wow, this feels like cheating. And I was like, cheating is good. I want you to cheat. So yeah, it's been really good. Naturally, it's got limitations. It doesn't work for everything. It like once your code base gets a bit bigger and you're just trying to get it to like edit like not like if you want to edit just one tiny thing, like you can just say change this. But if if you got like a big module and you're only trying to like change certain components, sometimes it wants to like makes edits like all over the place. And I'm like, no, like just this like thing over here, like don't touch anything else. And so sometimes it kind of reaches a little bit too far, and then you have to kind of get it to a place where it's kind of targeted at what you actually care about. But in general, it's been really good. I've also had recently for a predictive model. I basically put to a test a AI generated model, a student generated model, and then a sort of human expert generated model, and both the AI generated and the student generated models performed pretty poorly, and the expert generated model actually like had really high accuracy. So it couldn't quite get there. for some sort of, it can write the pipeline and whatever, but like in terms of like actual model accuracy, it couldn't really think through that, which is, to be fair, like for that, it's probably better to use like a AutoML solution, which is actually designed for that purpose, as opposed to like a general coding solution.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that I feel, I'm pretty sure this is easily fixable and somebody will come up with this, is it doesn't really understand, if you work with data, like you've got your code, it understands the code very well, but it doesn't understand what's actually inside of the data frame. And so that kind of look into, that's actually required to write the right, and this kind of brings it back to the topic of what we're talking about, like vibe coding and data pipelines. If it doesn't know what's inside of the table or inside of the data frame, it can't really write any reliable code. And so that's a shortcoming. If somebody's seen a tool that actually does this, I'd love to know. Obviously, you've got like the BigQuery and whatever, where you like straight up like working off the tables. But I feel like once you're halfway into the data pipeline, if got like a bunch of sort of derived things in the middle that are not, that may or may not be persisted, it sort of doesn't really know how to handle all that, let alone really understanding. I mean, it'd be good to add any sort of, if there's any documentation in terms of like, here's what this field actually means and how to use it, like that would have to get generated to really write a fully reliable pipeline. So there's definitely still a lot of like human plus machine that's required, but still way better than doing it without it.
Yeah, perfect
And on top
segue,
of it,
Norm.
and on top of it, it doesn't complain, it doesn't sleep, it's always available when you need it, doesn't want to take vacations, not asking for a raise. Well, that might happen. They might increase prices for
Yeah.
these agents, especially if people become reliable on it.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
about
So
to say it doesn't complain, it just requires you to pay
yes.
regularly.
Right,
Exactly. Yes, the subscription, yes, needs to be refilled.
Yeah.
Yeah, so perfect segue, Norm. Yeah, so I think all of us have used some kind of a vibe coding tool for various tasks. Based on what I know, I think there's lots of offering in the front end space, right? Just spin up a quick website, or I mean, every day I see in media someone else has yet another tool to do the front end, and I think some of them can do the basic framework for both the full stack, both the front end and the back end. And then that you mentioned that you have used some for the SQL query for generating the synthetic testing data. So like the data engineering, right? Like in my mind, it has, we all know, I mean, it can be the SQL query, it will be the ETL, transformation. It has the data quality piece, it has the data governance piece, right? The end to end, that's usually, what we're talking about when it comes to the end-to-end data pipeline. And I think also the two most common language that I know of, one is the traditional various flavors of SQL, right? I mean, like everybody, it's the ANSI SQL standard, but then some platform might not be 100% compliance, like the Teradata will come to mind. And then with the more modern platform, Snowflake and Databricks of the world, that like the Python and PySpark is the main, programming language. And so I have not really seen lots of tools. I think Python is, Python code generation is fairly common. But I have not seen, like lots of tools like actually specialized in the data pipeline, end-to-end data pipeline. So what do you think, Alex?
For sure, yeah. I think there is text to SQL in multiple places, right? In Databricks and Snowflake, and there's open source and commercial offerings of text to SQL tools generation. And there's different ways to approach that. And some of the tools will use schema, some of the tools will use just knowledge of SQL, and some of them will learn over time, because you will ask a question, there is a solution, and they record it and then use RAG to search through the solution space, which is interesting. In my mind, I would love to see a solution that robustly looks at the relationships between entities or navigates a knowledge graph. So that is where, and some of the area that we started talking about in the previous question, where is the shortcomings, that's probably the one of the shortcomings that they always come across is LLMs do not understand the structured knowledge. If there is an ontology or some kind of graph of knowledge, right? LLMs don't build that in their mind. I mean, there's some emerging nodes of knowledge, as in that research paper about Golden Gate Bridge, but we don't know how it works. So that's where I think one of the shortcomings, and I think Nam, you mentioned when it goes complex, it starts losing context. That is where text to SQL works, but it doesn't work for complex queries. If I have
Mhm.
I don't know, 5-entity join
Join.
with left and right join and multiple keys, I never had an LM to answer that question right. But on the other hand, if there is a straightforward question, you can automate that and hand it over to a system, and so you as the data engineer don't have to deal with a lot of simple queries. That's going to be taken care of. So you can focus on really interesting complex problems, solve them, and the scaffolding is taken care of by automation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So just to do a time check, I think we're 40 minutes into the session, so I want to wrap it up in next 5 minutes. So I will ask a question for each one of you to help answer. And the question is, that's the hot take for this session is, if there's one thing in your data stack you absolutely wouldn't want the AI to touch it, what will it be? Who wants to go first?
Well, I can go first. There's one thing if I don't want AI to touch is data. I don't want AI to touch data. It just goes inside and um, um, I think it screws up a lot. So let's say if you're trying to build a data warehouse or a lake house or basically any data repository, even when I'm trying to even generate some sample data as I was talking about earlier, sometimes it generates so much garbage. It's unbelievable. So I think AI can use the data that we are providing and make itself intelligent, but I don't want it to touch my data. I think that is something that I will provide AI, and AI can use that.
Yeah.
Kind of anti what we're here to talk about.
Well, I mean, right now I don't want AI to touch data. Maybe in the future, it may get there, right? So as Alex was
Yeah.
mentioning earlier, the moment it gets more complex. So if you have like a 5 join query, you will have to give it 5 different prompts, explaining one join at a time, and then piecemeal that together. So then it will start working without losing context and hallucinating. But when I've given it data, when I'm trying to tell it, okay, generate some sample data or something like that, a lot of time it starts generating garbage. So that's why I do not trust AI in generating data or handling data correctly at times.
Yep. Norm?
Credentials. I do
Mm.
not want to touch the credentials. That's the one thing I haven't fully figured out. What happens to my credentials in these AI coding assistants? Like, does it go into model training or not? Or yeah, I don't know. So yeah, stay away from my credentials. I don't want them to end up in one of those like jailbreak things.
So when you say credential, Norm, just to clarify, so you meant like the credential, your personal credential used to log into the
No,
system?
like database
Or-
credentials, like all the system, like IAM stuff, basically.
I see. Oh, okay. So you're saying that you don't want the AI system to be able to assume your credential to perform actions on behalf of you?
Manage credentials, maybe.
No, not necessarily. It's a good point, actually. So if I see, let's say like a bash script or something, and it shows me this is what I'm gonna run, I'm like, I'd probably click on it, but you make a good point. I'm like, let's say it needs to SSH into something, and then it needs to start using my SSH keys. I'm not really sure I want to let it do that, but then I'm so tempted to just click on play and be like, all right, it's right there, instead of me like taking it out and whatever. So, but it's also like in some cases you like, particularly when you're prototyping, I guess, like if you put things into productions, you have proper credentials management. But if you're also prototyping, like you might just throw hard code the credentials in the code, and then it starts reading through your code base, and then I'm like, okay, did this thing just go into the model or not? I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure these AI coding assistants actually really explain very well what they do with credentials. Like, do they strip it out? Like, does it go into model training? Like, I just don't know. But yeah, I mean, like, let's say you have a database URI in there, and I wouldn't want to end that up in the model training. But it's also good to think about it, assuming my role, let's say I want to do some like DevOps automation. But I want I probably assign it a service account, and then it kind of can do whatever it would need to do. But maybe it'll start grabbing my service account inadvertently, and then, like, do some damage.
Yes.
So, Norm, are you scared of AI hacking your accounts or impersonating you or something?
Oh, absolutely. I mean but that's gonna happen.
And
Like all
storing
the
all the data.
deep fake
Yes.
stuff. Like you definitely gotta watch out for it. Like I'm waiting for the day when I got a call and like somebody sounds like my wife, and she's like, "Oh my God, like whatever. You need to send me some money." Like I'm just waiting for the day that's gonna happen. But
Yeah.
luckily, I'll be like, sounds a little bit weird. I don't think she would do that. But yeah, apparently. Yeah, my wife actually got faked into, there was like a job recruiting thing, and like, she actually got a real job offer with like an offer letter and everything.
Oh, wow.
But it was just, so I don't even know what they were after, because why would you send somebody an offer letter for something? But it was really weird.
Wow.
But yeah, deep fakes are everywhere, so like I'm ready for that one.
Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, for sure. I think I like the pair programming paradigm or parallel, right? I think, and all of the tools that I use will have a fine print that says check result before applying, right? Check result before using. That's what I am with Nam. I'm not gonna let it write the code that performs critical transformations. And there's also gaps that it can, like, I like the scaffolding and plumbing that it does and lets me focus on the core logic. But even then, there's gaps that it still needs to work on, like integration, for example. I cannot use one tool to build the solution and deploy it and automate deployment and manage like end-to-end DevOps. That it doesn't, I haven't found the tool. If you find it, please let me know. That that would be awesome. But definitely, I don't trust AI because of randomness, right? It's a neural network. There's still probabilistic nature to it. I don't trust AI with deterministic workflows. If I need to go and it's a rule-based kind of decision process, I have to look at it. Even if it codes it, I have to trace through all of the branches and make sure that it works as expected, because who knows what it can hallucinate. Most of the time it works. One time when it needs to, it won't, and risk is high.
Yeah.
And wrong, there's one more thing over there, right? So to what Alex was saying and what Norm was saying, it depends also from which industry you come from. So let's say if you're
Yeah.
coming from healthcare industry, you don't want AI anywhere near your data or screwing up anything or doing any major transformations, as Alex was mentioning, because PHI data or PII data is absolutely critical. But let's say if you're not handling any PHI information or PII information, then you will still be okay with it going around and looking into your systems, etc., as long as it doesn't impersonate you, as Norm was saying, right? That, hey, it doesn't impersonate me, doesn't it doesn't breach any of my security concerns, etc. So hey, now you can go inside and do whatever little that I've asked you to do, not what you can, but what I've
Mhm.
asked you to do. So I think it's a little uh, there might be data stacks in all industries, to your question, but it depends on the industry. Some industries might be a little
Mhm.
more risk averse,
Yeah.
while some industries, like let's say for example, finance or healthcare or insurance or pharma, you definitely don't want AI messing around with any, pharma complex equations, and the variables that go inside and creating a medicine or anything of that sort. You don't
Yeah.
want AI anywhere. Nobody's going to consume that tablet ever in their
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay away from my bank account also. Yeah, so I mean, great discussion. Really appreciate all of you and share your expert insights and experience. It's very thought provoking, as we all said in the beginning, right? We're barely touching the surface today. So just in respect of everyone's time, we'll close for today, but we will follow up, with a few more, discussion. Like some of the things was brought up today, definitely worth exploring further, like how do we deal with the dependency we all start develop towards all the AI tools. And when you interview a new developer, is it good or bad that they have been using vibe coding? Yeah, lots of upcoming topics, but yeah, hopefully we'll have you all back with us for the next round.